10 things you need to know before watching Morbius. After the wild success of both Spider-Man and Venom, Sony is looking to establish their own cinematic universe as they look to utilize the full gallery of Spider-Man characters. Next to take center stage will be Dr. Michael Morbius, the living vampire. If you'd like to know more about the Batman of the Marvel Universe, from his origins to details about the movie, keep watching the video. Character creator. You'd be surprised to find out that Morbius finds its creative roots in the minds of legendary comic book writer Stan Lee. Stan wanted to create a vampire-inspired villain for Spider-Man, but couldn't do so due to a ban by the Comics Code Authority on supernatural characters. When the ban was finally lifted, Roy Thomas ended up giving life to Stan Lee's idea and came up with Morbius. During his first issue, he was just another baddie urged to kill and consumed by senses beyond his control. His character origins wouldn't come up until much later. Character origins. Dr. Michael Morbius, the man who would find himself transformed into a living vampire, is a well-regarded biologist. In fact, his work is so well known that it earns him a Nobel Prize and the recognition of two of the smartest men alive in the Marvel Universe, Professor Xavier and Reed Richards. However, he suffers from a degenerative illness that is slowly breaking down his body. To rid himself of his illness, the scientist begins to experiment with bat blood and electricity. Yeah, we know how weird this sounds, but aren't all comic book characters a little weird? As you might have guessed, the experiment doesn't end up going his way, in that he becomes, well, a vampire. So what can Morbius do? When he's not drinking the blood of his victims, Morbius is fighting off Spider-Man, X-Men, and the Fantastic Four all at once. Yes, you heard that right. Some of his earliest comic book arcs established Morbius as quite the threat. His powers range from night vision and echolocation to mind control and, to some extent, flight. He also possesses regenerative abilities, and while they're not as impressive as Wolverine's, he can still recover from major wounds rather quickly. While Morbius is the living vampire, he is immune to the traditional weaknesses vampires possess. That includes sunlight, holy water, the works. Not to mention he has genius-level intellect, one that he has won him the recognition of the smartest in the Marvel Universe. Interesting variants. Marvel's peak of the multiverse has everyone talking about variants, and while Morbius does have a few, the most interesting of them has to be Ultimate Morbius. He is an original vampire, son of Vlad Dracul and brother of Vlad Dracula III. While he has all the powers associated with true vampires, he is in fact struggling against his baser instincts. The Morbius is actually a vampire hunter, and what's cool is that he can cure vampirism in victims through his bite. Famous comic book arcs. There isn't a lot of content to go from as Morbius's run in the comics was short-lived. He was introduced to readers in a Spider-Man issue, where the web-slinger teams up with the lizard to take on the vampire. Afterwards, in another run, Morbius was given a proper origin in a larger arc in which the other beloved Marvel characters ended up making an appearance. Henceforth, Marvel drew a blank on what to do with the character. It is especially disappointing because, honestly, Morbius is a really cool character, especially with him not being a true villain. He could have been part of a team-ups with Spider-Man and Venom. What universe is he part of? As we've discussed before, from the looks of it, Morbius will be part of the Sony's extended universe. During the trailer, he references Venom, and we also see a bit of Michael Keaton's Vulture. However, like much of Sony's characters, it is quite the possibility that Morbius might cameo in the Marvel Universe as well. Is Andrew Garfield a part of this movie? Fans ended up spotting a Spider-Man poster in the Morbius trailer, and this led to a lot of speculation about Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man possibly making a return in Morbius. An interesting detail about the poster is the fact that it has the word murderer spray-painted over it. While this could have alluded to Tom Holland's Spider-Man before the release of No Way Home, we now know that Andrew's Peter Parker stopped pulling his punches after his Gwen Stacy died. So while Mysterio falsely made everyone believe Tom Spidey killed him, the murderer part may very much hold true for Andrew, Blade, and Morbius. Seeing how Blade is a vampire hunter, and Morbius is, well, a vampire, it's hard to see these two not crossing paths in the cinematic universe. An interesting way to go about it would be to cross over the MCU's Blade into the Sonyverse to deal with an apocalyptic event in which everyone is slowly becoming a vampire, brought about by Morbius. Sure, Spider-Man and Venom can be part of it too. The more, the merrier. Who is the Hunger? Loxias Crown, the main antagonist of the Morbius movie, is being played by none other than Matt Smith. In the comics, Crown is a member of the terrorist organization known as Hydra, who we've seen a fair bit of in the Marvel Universe. His powers include being able to manipulate the Dark Force, much like the villain of Sony's acclaimed Spider-Man game, Mr. Negative. However, due to a run-in with Morbius, he also ends up inheriting some of his bad powers, along with his hunger for human blood. We are excited to see Matt Smith bring this villain to life, as we're huge fans of his Doctor. Plot predictions. From the trailer, it is obvious that we will be following Michael Morbius through his origin story, as he becomes a morally dubious anti-hero. Fans speculate that Loxias Crown may serve as a catalyst to his transformation, while Tyrese Gibson's Simon Stroud investigates the killings by Morbius when he is in his vampire state. The film's plot will primarily surround these three as they run into altercations with each other. It's also obvious from the trailer that Oscorp is a part of Morbius's universe. It is not entirely impossible that the film might end with a Sinister Six reveal, as they hatch a plan to go against the neighborhood-friendly superhero that is a thorn in all of their paths. There it is, a quick recap on everything Morbius as the film hits the big screens. We've tried to cover everything about the character, but if we missed something, let us know in the comments.